we are going to discuss Apollo 17 photo AS17-135-20680. If you look on the screen right now, you'll see that photo. This was actually uploaded to the web by NASA when they were uploading a string of magazines of photos that were taken during what at that time was not known to be the final Apollo moon mission. Now, the photo was marked blank. That by itself is nothing crazy. A lot of the times when you're using, the Hasselblad Kodak cameras, when you get to the final frame or two, if you know you're going to be shooting a long succession of photos, you usually just take, a shot or two at the end just to clean out the canister and just make sure that every photo is exposed. So it's not crazy that, at the end of a magazine of film that you would have burnt frames. This is just a very common practice. But there was something very interesting about this photo specifically. When you burn a frame, what you're basically doing is creating a high or a low contrast so that the frame comes out either all black, or in this case, bright white or bright gray. So what initially appears to be a solid color with no detail actually has a lot of detail, because within black and within white there are billions of varying shades of gray that the eye cannot see when put side by side. But when you start bringing the contrast up or down and bringing out those varying shades, which is basically adding more color to what those shades are, more definition between the two, you'll start to make out details. As you can see on this photo here, there was something very unique that appeared. A pyramid. A massive pyramid appeared to be in the frame. In fact, if you take the contrast and play with it even further, you can see what appears to be some sort of massive monolith. Now, the concept of monoliths being found on other planets or moons is nothing new. The most famously known monolith was actually pointed out by Buzz Aldrin, who got very excited when the first photos of Mars came back, of not only Mars, but the moons of Mars, specifically Phobos. On Phobos, what appeared to be a completely massive artificial structure that appeared to be a monolith was photographed in high detail. Now, if you wonder what a monolith is, it's kind of like a cobblestone, like something big that was created with writing on it to say, I was here, that type of thing. And it's built to last throughout the course of time. A lot of times we will create monoliths after wars and things like that. Well, a lot of people believe that there are monoliths that are placed throughout our galaxy as well. And as we send things like the Hubble out and different rovers, we repeatedly get these photos that have these similar characteristics. And pyramids being probably the most observed. So the question is, were these photos taken during Apollo 17, were they intentionally blanked with a high contrast, knowing that they could bring out, the details, the important details as far as size, distance, those things. That this is a way to basically photograph something, but essentially hide it. A very, kind of minimalistic way, but nonetheless effective. Did Gene Cernan, Harrison Schmitt, and Ronald Evans, which were the 3 astronauts on board Apollo 17, were they sent there to photograph this monolith and this pyramid on purpose with the intentional method of transporting this information back to NASA being a blown out, burnt frame? To be honest, if you're just looking for basic size and detail, it's smart. The average human being isn't going to see a blank photo and think, oh, let me mess around with the contrast. And you also have to remember that when this photo was taken, this was, a decade before programs like Photoshop were even invented. I mean, people did not even have a home computer at this point. I mean, this was, at that time, this would be a rather ingenious method of sending information in a way that, appears at first like it's hidden, that you can bring out, It'd be a really genius way to do it. What's really weird is all of the astronauts, they've been asked about this many times. They have no comment. All of them have no comment. NASA has been asked about this photo many times, and they have no comment as well. Now, the skeptical-minded, they claim that weird things appear in burnt photos all the time, and they basically present this photo. If you look on the screen right now, you can see it. This is another burnt frame that was taken inside the lander, in which the camera was pointed down at the ground, where they say, well, that's close enough. That just shows right there that things could look different. And I would agree. That looks, similar. There are some similarities. But I also think there's some major differences. I think that one looks like the busy floor of a lander with all kinds of objects going in many directions. But the photo in question appears to have depth and landscape to it and large areas that are affected by light. If I was a betting man, I would say one is definitely not the floor of a lander and one is. That doesn't mean that I would, put my life on the fact that I think this is a pyramid. But if I had to guess between the two, as a professional filmmaker who works with film and also messes around with Photoshop and, animates and does my own graphic design, and somebody who's been doing this for 20 years, if I had to guess, I would say that one of these photos is a burnt frame of a camera pointing down, and the other one is not. It is something either outside a window, outside a bay door, or was taken by someone who was standing outside. And that's just the large swathing way that the light moves, and especially the discernible angles. It's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. And I know people say all the time, well, it could just be a coincidence. And I've done an entire podcast before about coincidences. I mean, so what are the coincidences that a moon mission goes off as scheduled, which, by the way, this was our final moon mission, according to the government and NASA, supposedly. I don't believe that for a second. I think this was the mission where they started realizing there's some danger in us just putting all of this information out to the world every time, we go to the moon. I think they realized that it probably wasn't that smart, especially because, we didn't go to the moon for vacation. There are a lot of really practical reasons that we would want to control the moon, specifically the dark side of the moon. which, mind you, is not dark. We just call it that because we don't see it. Because the moon, oddly enough, another one of 100 bizarre things about the moon is in a tidal lock, meaning it just happens to, rotate perfectly with our rotation, where we all only see one side of it. So, but just like the Earth, every time that moon spins around, the sun's lighting up the backside of it. But there are a lot of reasons why we would want to own and control the moon, especially if we're exploring the galaxy. There are a lot of reasons, military reasons, that we would want to control the moon when it comes to planet Earth. So Apollo 17, it's not a surprise to me that suddenly we were not going to the moon anymore. I mean, think about this. It's not like NASA ever shut down, So since Apollo 17, what have we been doing? Nothing? Just making, cell phone satellites? Or did Apollo 17 mark something else in which, like I said, our government finally wised up to the fact that it probably wouldn't be smart to just go up to the moon and then just release a bunch of photos and video and, It's why they hire copy editors, right? I worked at a newspaper for years as a writer. And there's a reason why they hire copy editors. If you don't know what a copy editor is, there's usually 2 levels of them in each newspaper back when they would actually write print newspapers. Now we have a lot of, spell check software and grammar check software, and that has made life easier for writers. But the primary reason that copy editors had a job is because the fallibility of the human brain. Human beings by nature, and this is true. You can, research this. I invite you. By nature, we do not want to be wrong. It's just a flaw of the human character that actually propels us. Now, the byproduct of not wanting to be wrong is that we often will not see our own mistakes. So when you write like a 3,000-page story, no matter how many times you read that story over and over and over and reread it and reread it and reread it, once your mind has made a mistake, whether it's misspelling a word that just happens to look to you like it should be correct, or whether it's ending a sentence with the word the, and then starting the next sentence with the word the as a malfunction of the brain, our mind will continue to miss these errors. No matter how many times you read it over, the mind does this. So that's why they hire copy editors. A fresh mind. Somebody else that doesn't share the same tendencies, and somebody that is not a brain that thinks differently. Because that person will read over the same article that you wrote, spell check and grammar checked, 30 times, only to miss the same 5 mistakes over and over again. And that first copy editor will probably catch 3 out of those 5 mistakes, maybe 4. But usually, there's something that their mind does wrong. Some kind of mistake that they're overlooking. And because they have the innate ability to not want to be wrong, you have to have another copy editor read it. Until eventually, you get all of the errors out. This is the reason why it would be a really bad idea for NASA to take a ton of photos on a moon mission, or to shoot a bunch of video and start uploading them to websites and sending them out in a way that there is public access. Because you can say to the photo editor at NASA, hey, out of those 1,000 photos that we took, here's a list of 150 that we don't want to go out to the public. Yeah, there's a military base in this one, there's a tower in this one, there is, a pyramid in this one, make sure you pull those all out before you upload the public offering. Well, in the same way with copy editing, the first guy that goes through would, probably catch them all, probably get them all out, but maybe not, And hopefully there's a third round of, copy editing, but it's just not a smart idea. Now, I only bring this up because this could be a reason why NASA has never commented on this. When you have a definitive answer to debunk something, it's pretty easy to just say, no, this is what it was. That's what's up. But when you want the story to just go away, sometimes the best way to do that is to just not comment on it. Maybe it was just a photo that slipped. And they went, oops. Someone said, what do we say? You say nothing. There's no mileage to a one-sided fight. That's true. If you have one side going, that's a pyramid, that's a pyramid, that's a pyramid, right? And the other side is saying nothing, you're only going to spend so much time on that story, And back then, I think you can get away with mistakes like that because there wasn't the web. There wasn't this quick way to examine things and to have everybody else share their thoughts and opinions on it like I'm doing now. This didn't exist back during the age of Apollo 17, but they definitely, could see the writing on the wall. I mean, they knew way back then that, this was all coming. This was all going to happen. Which takes us back to coincidence. What are the chances that on planet Earth, there's these triangular pyramids all over the world that resemble each other, that all have astrological alignments, that all point to the stars, often Orion's belt, if not due east, all around the world. And whether it's Phobos on Mars, Mars itself, or the moon, we're finding these pyramids everywhere. So what are the coincidences that you can go to the moon and burn a frame and it accidentally comes out looking exactly like a large pyramid with a monolith right next to it? Is this just a coincidence? I mean, wouldn't that be a pretty major coincidence?